Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Freedomlink Radio. My name is Joe Joseph. With me tonight are my co-hosts John King and AC Griffith. Boys, how are we doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing just fine. How about you, Griff?
I'm doing about a 9 tonight.
Wow, you sound awful and muffled. What the heck is going on?
I don't know. Let me dial back in.
You got it. Anyway, folks, tonight we don't have a guest scheduled, and the reason why we don't have a guest scheduled, it's kind of a twofold thing. The first reason is there's a lot of interesting information in the news and some scientific data that we want to go over. We also want to talk about preparation and the need to prepare in a tactical sort of manner. Have a plan. And the last thing is because the focus is you. I want you to be the guest. So anybody that wants to call in tonight, and the number is 877-598-8549, I want you guys to call up and be the guest tonight, and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Just make sure that it's relevant, of course. But the idea is to get people involved. I've seen a lot of lethargy, and I want to involve as many people in the audience as possible. So anybody that's got the cojones enough to give a call, 877-598-8549. Oh, Griff, are you there?
Yes, I am. You still
hear me? No, muffled again. You sound like you're
the phone.
Sounds like you. Yeah, you sound like you're talking through a casket.
Well, the phone is working. We just talked.
Oh, I know. That's weird. Okay, well, anyway.
I'll call back.
Okay, very good. Anyway, you sound a bit muffled. John.
Yes.
Okay. Let's kick this off by talking about some of the latest economical news you've drummed up in your research.
Well, some of the people, our listeners anyways, that know a little bit about the WebBot may recall I predicted several things, and the accuracy is uncanny. Up to this point, it's about 94.6%. And several of the things that I pointed out to you earlier in the day that are being set up is ready to come true what the WebBot said over the last couple of weeks. I stated that they were going to pump the holiday Christmas sales, and that in January it's going to be revealed that all was not as well as they thought it was, and that the sales did not go off as portrayed, and that's exactly what took place. The higher-end stores that the elite visit didn't take much of a hit. As a matter of fact, they showed a little bit of an increase. However, lower-end stores such as Target and Walmart that the common man shops at showed very little increase, but they didn't hit their targets that they were hoping for. I also said that in January, there would be a jump in unemployment compensation claims, for which 35,000 unemployment compensation claims nationwide just last week alone. I also said that in February, right about Valentine's Day, and I picked Valentine's Day because it's a pagan holiday, and we all know how those elites love them pagan holidays. All bets are off after the 14th, because that is when I foreseen a lot of turmoil taking place within the financial system. And lo and behold, that's exactly what things are going to be set up for come early this spring, as China's president, Hu, which is spelled H-U, questions the future role of the U.S. dollar, and China is actually trying to put themselves into a position now which will make their currency, which is I know I'm going to slaughter it, the renminbi, which is spelled RENMINBI, and they
Actually, John, it's renminbi. You got to say it like a Chinaman. Renminbi.
well, let's just say the RMB. They're wanting to make that their international currency. Now, the U.S. dollar is an international currency, as we all know. And if there is another international currency that's thrown into the basket that's more stable, then all of those countries that are worried about all those trillions of U.S. dollars that are printed up are going to very quickly and orderly, in orderly fashion, at least in first, start dumping the dollar and will be going to the Chinese RMB. That will show all of the dollars printed on the books. You know, economists and people that love to get off on numbers usually say that we're $13 trillion in debt. That is an absolute lie. Some people like to say that we're $30 trillion in debt. That's not anywhere close. We're approximately 220 trillion with a T in debt. How do I know this? Well, they're not accounting for a lot of the money that was off the books, because the money that they're printing up now that they're giving to other countries, they can do so and they don't have to put that on the books. But when the Chinese RMB takes its place as the new international currency, all of that money that is out there is going to start showing back up on the books. And hyperinflation is going to set in. It has to, because now you don't have $30 trillion in the pool or $13 trillion in the pool. Overnight you have $100 trillion, $150 trillion, $200 trillion in the national debt pool, and coincidentally there goes inflation, and when that takes a hold, that toilet paper that you're paying $3 for today is going to be about $30,000 a roll tomorrow.
Now, John, Susie Girl in the chat room, I want to bring this up. She just put something in the chat room that is extremely interesting and kind of bodes. It parallels what your web butt has been saying, and it's what she said is Rick Wiles' radio broadcast from last Friday. He stated that he had inside information that a new currency is being set up now, and to be announced between March and July 2011. Dollar to be devalued by 50 to 70%. And she put a link in the chat room. I'm going to put it up in my screen right now so I have it for later. But isn't that interesting, that that kind of timeline?
Well, as you well know, Joe, I've said it to you several times off air that March is the month when the marches start. That's the spring thaw. People are going to start getting fed up. They're going to realize that all of those numbers that have been thrown at them all winter long have been padded. They're untrue. The dollar is going to become more unstable. People are going to start getting fed up, and in March, that's when the marches are going to start here in the United States, and it just gets downhill from there. After the middle of June, I see rioting, full-scale Watts-type Rodney King-style riots in the greater cities of the United States.
Hey, Griff, are you there?
Yes, sir. How do I sound?
Fantastic. What did you do?
I changed phones.
Uh-oh.
Did the warranty on that 1995 Chinese phone wear out?
Joe, what do you make of what just happened to that phone?
Made in China. The Chinese hit the self-destruct button.
No, I just talked to you. For everybody listening, we had a conference off of the air just before airtime, and it sounded perfect, didn't it?
Yeah, but that's the mouthpiece. You know, the little magnetic mouthpiece in there?
Yes.
Probably just crap the bed. It happens in an instant. It's kind of like
it happened right at the right time, didn't it?
Of course, as usual. As usual. But I mean, you heard what John was talking about.
Yes.
What do you think? Why is it? Why are we in competition with the renminbi when here we have the largest and greatest economy in the world. We have a military force that is second to none. Why is it that we just don't go in and use the pencil eraser and say, you know what, folks? Guess what? We're bankrupt. You're going to deal with it. And when we come out on the other side, we'll still be consuming. We'll still be doing things. But why does it have to come to this type of, to this head, if you will?
Well, you're talking about the people's agenda, but the Obama administration and the banking agenda is to bring the country down, and that's exactly what they've been doing. That's what they're doing now, and that is their agenda, and that's what they want to do.
But would you say, Griff? Let me ask you this: would you say that it's Obama? Because we saw this under Bush. Remember, Bush
well, I think Obama is a figurehead.
Right. Okay.
I don't think he's really swift enough to pull off something like this if he wanted to. But
okay.
It's time to bring the economies down, and with him in office, your interests are not favoring the American people or the American nation or the prime directive of the American people and nation. We're more Muslim today with Muslim tendencies and bringing the country in line with Muslim and other banking interests, and I think that's the agenda that's being played out. The American people are in some mental wonderland. They can't imagine why this is occurring. Well, it's not hard at all to understand. It's the agenda of the power, the people that are in power, to bring the country down, and they're doing it, and they're bringing the monetary system. They have latched on to an opportunity with the Wanta situation to bring it down. That's why they won't allow any part of the $27 trillion back into the Treasury, or for that money to be returned to foreign nations, China, Japan, and European nations. That's why they're doing that.
That'd be a mighty windfall, wouldn't it?
Well, it's off the books, and
right.
It will bring the other countries down and the monetary system down, and apparently that's what they want. It's not by accident.
No, of course it's not. There's never, and John, I muted you because your gain's a little bit high. There's never really an accident per se. There's always reasons behind everything. And, okay, so they get their wish, right? United States comes crashing down, kaboom. What is it that they seek to achieve by doing that, Griff?
The only thing on the horizon is the project that they started 30, 40 years ago, and it's almost finished except the last piece of the puzzle. That last piece is to mark the customers or the people with their debit numbers to go into a full-fledged debit monetary system. Everything in the world, every product has been marked with an individual barcode with its own stock number. The only thing yet to be marked with stock numbers are the people, and that system can be put in instantly. The point-of-sale terminals are in, all of the hardware, all of the programming, everything in the world is set up for the debit monetary system except the people, to mark the people with their bank account numbers, and they will be able to buy or sell, but without the number you won't be able to buy or sell. Revelation 13:16.
Do you think that all of this stuff, the barcode scanners, the barcoding themselves, do you think that was a kind of that wasn't invented for that purpose, was it? I mean, or let me say, was it planned to eventually get to that point, or is it a technology that the powers that be saw that said, we could use this to our advantage. We could use this to control the people. What do you think?
I think it started off as a way to mark cattle, and then it's evolved into this. That's the way so many things evolve. But it is the enslavement of all of the people in the world if it's allowed to go through. It is, and nobody can do that, and they certainly can't do that to their children. And if it gets to that point, like I think they're attempting to do that, I'm really not sure they'll be able to pull it off with everything collapsing at one time. But if they attempted it, you can't take that number. You can't get into that system You will be a slave, and your children will be slaves, and you will never get out of that. It would be a cursed thing to agree to.
So why all the lethargy? Why is it that people are just even? We harp on this all the time, don't we, Griff?
Yes.
And still, as much as we do, there still isn't enough emphasis that people are putting towards preparing themselves. And I guess my question to everybody out there is why? I mean, now here's my take on things. My take on things is you can't possibly prepare for everything. I know that. I think we all know that. There are certain things you can do. One thing, my wife brought up a great point tonight, and I wanted to share it with you guys too. Because we were having a discussion about gold and silver, and the argument was put up that, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go buy silver because silver's always been there. It's always been there after, economic turmoil. It's always emerged. Gold and silver has always been there for as a currency, as a way to trade for goods and services. And she brought up, she goes, I was watching the movie Titanic today, and the porter, one of the main characters, had a bunch of money and threw it at him, says, here, take my money. I'm going to buy my seat to get on the boat. And, the porter says, go to hell. That money's not going to help me any more than it's going to help you. Because it was worthless. In that type of situation, it's worthless. The things that are most important are the things that are going to help you survive and sustain yourself through a very tumultuous time. And I most certainly want to get into that a lot more as the show progresses today, Griff. I think it's very important, and considering a lot of the news that's coming, in the recent months that's come out, I don't think we can stress it enough. Do you think?
No. I talk to people every day. I've been doing this 10, 11 years. Every day of my life has been focused on these matters. It's a wonder I'm as sane as I am today, devoting all of this effort, energy, and time to this one project.
Mm-hmm.
People are not ready for it. Even the people that think they're ready for it, they're not ready for it. They're not psychologically ready for it, and they're not materially ready for it. They haven't really thought out and developed and acquired the conveniences that will get them through into the future. They haven't worked out their alarm systems. They haven't given thought to toilet paper, things like that. They never thought about a fingernail clipper, or combs, yep, or all of the little things that add comfort to the life. The lighting system. They think they have a generator and they'll run it and make electricity and cut on a light. Not going to happen. The only way to do it is LED lightings, LED, light-emitting diodes. And it will take you months and months and months of constant study to come up to speed and develop lighting systems for your house with that. Then you have to know about battery operating systems. Then you have to know about solar cells and how to charge batteries. And just the one thing, just lighting, would take you 6 months to come up to speed if you don't have a background in it. And every topic is like that. Water, it's quite a study to water. Where do you get the water from? How do you filter it? How about the pH? How about if it's high in iron, what do you do to bring the iron content down? Or how will iron affect you? Or how will drinking acid water, pH 4, affect your body? It will, And what do you do? And where do you get the chemistry of the calcite or the limestone to put in the water to bring the pH up? Where do you get that? How much do you put in? It's quite a study to each one of these little categories.
May I offer a little bit of knowledge to that question and rebut one thing that Griff said? Joe,
by all means, yeah, go ahead, buddy.
In my research to try to beat the system when it comes down on everyone, especially the Food Safety and Modernization Act, and wanting to grow my own home fresh vegetables, I've begun to research how to do those things at home, indoors. And one of the new style of lights that I have come across is the LED grow lights, and they have them in both spectrums, blue and red. And the ones that I have seen do cast out quite a bit of light. However, it takes approximately 120 watts to throw out that light. In quite contrast, a 13-watt CFL bulb will generate as much electricity or an output as a 60-watt conventional bulb would at 10% electrical usage. And there are hydroponic nutrients that you can buy online that will replace the calcium and other micro minerals in the water that will enable you to grow tomatoes and peppers and watermelons. I've begun to grow my very own hydroponic beefsteak tomatoes. The little plants are only about 2 inches long. It's odd time of the year to do so. I've also begun to grow myself a watermelon, and since hydroponics is a very good medium to grow plants in, this seed that I have from my neighbor who grows giant pumpkins, he gave me some, and I want to grow or try to grow myself a 1,000-pound pumpkin before the county fair comes around again in the fall, hydroponically.
How cool would that be, man? But Griff, okay, LEDs are all good, but what about torches coated in pitch? You know, I mean, why do we got to get all technological? I mean, we're talking about surviving, right? So I mean, I worked with
Dr. Frankenstein at his laboratory, and he had torches on the sides of the wall going down to the bottom.
Okay, well, what's the problem with that? You know, so
nothing. It's kind of smoky. We had, asthma problems and respiratory problems from the tar and the pitch and the.
Well, we got that from chemtrails. I mean, come on, so we're good. What's a little tar and pitch? No sweat. You know, that's my point. Why are we getting all technological?
Is it Steinway or Steinway?
It's Steinway.
How do you pronounce Frankenstein?
Frankenstein.
You know who Frankenstein was?
Now outside of, I don't know the real history of Frankenstein. No, I just know the movie stuff.
What was the monster's name?
I thought that was Frankenstein.
No, it was Dr. Frankenstein. It was referred to as the monster. That was his name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Frankenstein was Dr. Frankenstein.
Wow.
I'm glad we got that cleared up.
I feel so much better now. I was
talking about little teeny, rather small LEDs, and not for hydroponics, but for lighting in the house and flashlights and things like that. I think Dr. Frankenstein in his laboratory would have latched onto it had he known about LEDs back then.
I'm sure he would have.
I think every aspect of your life is going to be cut back to minimal. You're not going to be able to run a 100-watt light bulb or even a 50-watt light bulb. You can't sustain that under emergency conditions. I think if you can cut through the darkness and make it agreeable to see enough to move around in the house, that's probably sustainable. But beyond that, it's going to be very difficult. You can't run your refrigerator because typically a refrigerator runs about half the time and consumes an enormous amount of power. Now, if you have an awful lot of money, you can go out and buy a high-tech, state-of-the-art fridge that would be easier to run. But typically, with the average person, even that would be a real chore. To set up a solar cell system and battery, Edison batteries or deep cycle batteries, it requires many, many, many thousands of dollars, and most people don't have that. I would suggest that it would be better to put that money on food than it would on solar cells and lighting.
Griff, what temperature does a refrigerator have to get down to? Because we know a freezer is obviously below freezing, but what's the typical temperature that a refrigerator operates at? And I'm asking because I don't know the answer to the question. What would you say?
I don't quite understand what you're asking, because the freezer is part of the refrigerator. They just draw up some of the air on the freezer section and blow it down into the bottom. So it's a little below freezing.
No, but I guess my question to you is, like, when you open up, say you put a thermometer in your refrigerator, how much? What is it set to? I mean, what temperature?
It's an individual control in there. You can determine what temperature you want down in the bottom section by just blowing air out of the top part.
Because what I've seen, and I learned this from talking to my septic guy. See, where I am, the land doesn't perk well, and because I have to have a 3-stage, pretty much a mini sewage treatment plant in my backyard, I have to have somebody maintain it for me, because God only knows that I don't want to go swimming in the poo. So anyway, I've got these 3 tanks, and the thing came up. He was saying, well, make sure you don't put greases down there and bleach and things like that. It'll kill the bacteria. And I said, well, I'll put that whatever you call it, that additive that you put into your septic system that has the bacteria in it. And he says, oh, you could do that, but that's a waste of money. And I said, well, why is that? And he goes, well, in order for these bacteria to actually grow and to ferment, it's got to be a certain temperature. And he says, in the ground where these tanks are buried, it typically doesn't get over about 50 degrees. And that's not good for bacteria to grow, the stuff that you pour in. He says it's just a waste of money, so it's kind of a scam. He says you can do it if you want.
I think it's called Rid-X, isn't it?
Rid-X, that's right. Right, exactly right, Rid-X.
Yeah.
And he says it's kind of a scam because it doesn't get warm enough down there for that to ferment. He says kind of think of it like yeast. Yeast without the sugar. It just doesn't do it. Same stuff. But that got me thinking. I'm like, well, why do I have to worry about a refrigerator? I'll just dig a hole. I can dig a hole, put my stuff down there, and put a board over top of it. Kind of like pitches with a torch with pitch on it. Keeping it simple. What do you think?
Well, it would be cool. I don't really know what the temperature would be. If you could go down and dig a shallow well into maybe 30 feet and have water at the bottom, then that would be a nice refrigerator for temperature of the water would be cool. That would work.
I think there's a lot of alternatives, and sometimes I think that we think things in terms of 21st century technology, and in order to survive a situation that puts us back 100 years, we got to think like we're back 100 years. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think
agree.
that's
the kind of life that I see coming after these financial institutions collapse, and it's going to set off a ripple of dominoes falling in all different directions once that occurs.
I agree with you. And folks, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Just a roundtable discussion tonight. Anybody who wants to call in, 877-598-8549. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Stay tuned.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit Free2Prosper.com right now.
Hey, it's me, Shepard, the host of the Intel Hub. Check out my live show every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can check it out from my website, theintelhubradio.com.
Join me, Joe Joseph, John King, and A.C. Griffith, Thursdays and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern
for Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com. You are listening to the Intel Hub News Network, crushing the New World Order piece by piece.
Well, folks, we're back. Number to call, 877-598-8549. Be interested to hear what you have to say. Griff, I've got a question from the chat room regarding the Gulf of Mexico. And have you heard anything lately, any new news or anything coming out of that region?
It looks like the same is occurring down there. We know that the oil is still coming up out of the floor. They're still spraying toxic onto the water and onto the people. Nothing has changed. The lies continue from BP and continue from our government. The people's lives and DNA are at risk. They will pay a price later on for being in that environment. There's so much apathy down there among the majority of the people. They don't want to leave. They don't want to do anything. They're just sitting there as though they have plenty of time and there's nothing happening and they're perfectly okay. They're not doing anything. The same people are being vocal down there, and it's going nowhere. I think the thing to do is to confront the officials at their homes.
No, I agree. I certainly agree. The problem that I see, first of all, the Saints are out of the playoffs, so now maybe somebody will pay attention a little bit more than than typically. But the apathy is there, Griff, and I think it's really because people don't like change. Period. End of story. And if it doesn't affect them directly, it's not going to mean anything, you know? Case in point, I mean, I went outside today, and there were chemtrails all over the place. Did it change what I did for the day? No. Can I do anything about it? Not really. I can try to inform people, but let me tell you something. At any point in time, they can change what they're putting in that and gas everybody with some sort of strain of virus, some sort of biological agent. Doesn't matter what it is. But they could really wreak havoc, the population of any region with those chemtrails. Yet we still go on about our daily business and do what we have to do and trudge on. You know?
Yes, there's no quality control over the containers and the nozzles on those aircraft. There's no quality control. No one knows what's coming out of those nozzles from day to day.
Right, and I mean we can talk about it being ionized aluminum and barium. I mean, go to Cliff Carnicom's website and take a look what they spray out of some of that stuff. You know, I really think that what we're seeing in a large scale, you're seeing in a small scale down in the Gulf region, because these people are going to lose everything if they go and leave. But one thing that they won't lose right away is their life. They won't, but they'll lose everything else. Right.
And
all their
children.
material wealth and all their material things may go by the wayside, but you know, the trade-off is your sustained health over a longer period of time. And so I don't know what to tell anybody that's down there that I already haven't said, because it doesn't really sway them. I mean, just think about it. Here's your choice. You can stay and tough it out, and we'll see what happens. But, you know, chances are you're probably going to get sick. The flip side is I can sell my house in an already down and doomed and depressionary market, and I'm going to lose my shirt over it, and I'm probably going to lose everything I have and have to relocate to a place where chances are I'm not going to have as good a job as I have and everything else, and to see it steamroll. So people see that and they're like, screw it. I think I'm just going to stay where I am.
What would you do, Joe, if you were down there with your family?
I would pick up and get the hell out. And you want to know why, Griff? Because that's life experience. Because I've moved 11 times in the past, since 2003, 2004. I'm no novice when it comes to moving, and a lot of that had to do with jobs, you know, just bouncing around. I don't like to stick in one place for too long. We spent 3 years up in Long Island, New York. It doesn't. That doesn't faze me. I'm not afraid of change, and I'm not afraid to move if I have to. It's a necessary thing, you know. Our ancestors, you know, they weren't comfortable people. Look at the founding fathers. Look at that era. And do you think that people were comfortable? Hell no. They lived day to day. They didn't know what was going to happen or how they were going to fare the next day. They had no weather reports. They had no technology. They didn't know whether their crops were going to make it through the summertime. You know, they lived a much simpler lifestyle, one that was much more in tune with things, and they didn't have such a materialistic attachment to everything. So I'm of the opinion that we've become corrupt or corrupted by the powers that be just over so long, and this is where we are now, and people have to break out of that. Don't you think?
I don't know that they are going to break out of it. The generation of people, the last couple of generations, have been affected. They don't understand who they are. They don't understand the country. They don't care about the country. They don't care about themselves. They do care about themselves. That's all they care about. I spoke wrong. They are lovers of themselves. They have no concept about the history. They don't know where they came from. The schools are not teaching history. Schools have deleted World War II out of most of the history books, for instance,
right,
and talk very little about the other conflicts, and have, in many cases, condemned the United States for being the aggressors, and that's what the young people are being taught. They don't know what it is to have to defend their property. They think no one's going to hurt them. They think everybody should be fair with one another. Well, maybe that's a great idea, but it doesn't work like that. They are just operating to a different drummer, and it's not the drummer that's going to get them through or save their country. You let the Chinese come marching in through Mexico, and it's going to be a lot of surprised young people that will say, "That's not fair," or "I'm offended."
Yeah.
And then they'll be shot. You know.
No,
and they'll be shot.
No,
and they'll probably die in the pool of blood with a surprised look on their face.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. I often wonder how anything like that would pan out, and I can't wrap my arms around. I can't wrap my arms around the whole idea of the Chinese invading. You know, I just don't see it happening militarily.
This will be their country. They own it.
Yeah, but how? They own what? What do they have? A deed, a piece of paper? That piece of paper is as good as the Federal Reserve notes you hold in your hand.
It's as good as the Chinese army with their guns taking their property.
Sure, just as good as our military can do this. You know, do the same thing. That's my point.
We won't have a military.
Now, why is that?
Let the dollar collapse. How are you going to have a functioning military? How are you going to buy the gasoline for the airplane to move the military?
So you don't think they'll have any other? They don't have any backup plan at all. That's just going to.
No, I don't.
Descend into chaos, and it's going to be third world, and that's it.
I think that's the agenda. The Obama administration's pushing for civil unrest right now. They want it, so they can crush it. They want it. Now, that's their agenda.
One of the guys in the chat room there just put that they have no Navy. Now, I will say this. They don't have a trained Navy. Their Navy's not as trained as we are. But recently, Representative Randy Forbes, he's out of Virginia. He just went on the floor about 3 or 4 months back and asked why. Why had the Chinese surpassed the United States in the number of warships that they have? Why has that been allowed to happen? And he went on the floor publicly and said that. So yes, I'll agree with you. Now, I was in the Navy, and believe it or not, we did exercises with the Chinese. And their ships, some of them are old. A lot of them are, they may be ex-Soviet ships. They're certainly not up to speed technologically with the United States Navy. And to me, quite honestly, I think we would decimate them if they ever got into some sort of naval battle. But really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's going to come down to that. You're not going to see ships of the line up and duke it out with 24-pounder cannons, It just those ages are done and gone. Everything now is over the horizon, and exactly. Or the use of technology of which we have absolutely no frame of reference whatsoever. It's a terrible, terrible time that we live in, and we as Americans are shielded from that a lot because of the fact that we live in a country that has things, that has everything, these creature comforts. But, woe be to us the day that those go away. Let me tell you something. Because people do not know how to survive anymore. They don't know how to do it. It's like I said, torches with pitch. Easy concept to understand, but people are stuck on, I need my generator. I got to have this type of bulb and that type of bulb. No, you don't. You can live in a grass hut. It doesn't matter how you do it. The fact of the matter is you got to know the alternatives because this technology may not be there. We may be Uganda, the next Uganda, just on a large scale. You don't know that. And that's my rant. But let's go to the phones right now. I got Jim from New Hampshire on the line. Jim, you're live on the air.
Well, hi. Yeah, thanks for having me on the line. I love the show.
Hey, thanks, Jim.
Yeah, you guys come up with a lot of great topics. And I really love the stuff on preparedness and so on. And it's interesting what we're talking about today. One thing I wanted to say was I recently came across an article here about maybe a possible HARP involvement here in Australia in the EU Times. It's online there. I'm sure you guys have all heard about the the flooding going on there in Australia, it's like epic proportions. And I was wondering if, well, instead of HARP, it maybe was scalar technology or something like that. And what maybe your thoughts are on that. So.
Hey Griff, that's a Jim. That's something good. Griff, what's the difference between scalar and HARP?
Well, HARP is a transmitter.
It's an RF transmitter, right?
Yeah, it's an RF transmitter. Puts out a hell of a lot of power straight up. It has a fixed array of antennas. I'm sure you can manipulate the phasing of the antennas, even though they're fixed, to move the output in some slight different directions. But it's pretty fixed, and it's a transmitter, and it has roads leading to the transmitter building, and it's on the maps, and everybody knows where it is. And I have never, from the very beginning, felt it was a weapon. It's old technology. It's nothing more than a transmitter at a much higher frequency than your radio station, but that's all it is. I know a lot of people point to that as the military weapon that's causing a lot of the problems, but they simply don't know about the so-called scalar transmitters that are being used. Very few of the people really know about that enough to even talk basic, but that's what it is. And certain satellite weapon rays also come into play. The weather all over the world is being manipulated by the so-called scalar transmitters. Joe, I wish you had in front of you the quote from Secretary of Defense Cohen on that. I don't know why people ignore that. It couldn't be more to the point. He said so much in a written statement in 1997. So I don't think it's HARP. I think it's other transmitters.
The one thing I wanted to say was, I usually am able to get into the chat room, and for some reason my computer isn't letting me. I don't know why. But
it's been hokey all night. So
yeah.
Don't feel bad, Jim.
Well, this goes back several episodes, and I had to have some systems reboot and stuff on my computer and having issues. But I don't know why it's not working now. But anyways, if I could, I'd love to give you the link to this article here, because they're showing a picture of what looks like a perfect circle of cloud formation, interesting cloud formation right over Australia. And the article says huge rings appear over Australia. And then
that's not the first time,
HARP
Jim.
involved. Huh?
Right. That's not the first time, Jim.
Yeah, okay.
About 6 months back, there was a huge ring over Russia. As a matter of fact, it was right in, I think, Moscow.
Wow.
It was very interesting. Now, the difference between here's the scientific difference between HARP and scalar. Yeah, HARP is RF, radio frequency waves. That's what they are.
Right.
Scalar is longitudinal EM waves, electromagnetic. So there's two different concepts there. You're talking about magnetic, and you're talking about RF.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And HARP, in order for HARP to actually do something, it's got to heat up. It's got to heat up that ionosphere. So that's what it is. It's a huge ionospheric heater. The different. Here's what also you have to understand is that you need a relatively long wave in order for it to bounce off the atmosphere.
Mm.
The shorter the wave, the more chances it's going to burn right through. So it's typically anything over the HF spectrum or high frequency spectrum, which is 3 to 30 megahertz, is going to burn through that atmosphere. As a matter of fact, in the high HF band, it'll actually start to do that. Once you get into VHF and on up, any sort of radio wave goes right into space. It burns right through the atmosphere.
Line
right.
Type, right. Like,
exactly right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. I was glad to be able to call in since I haven't been able to get in the chat room, and it's been great chatting with you folks.
I appreciate it, Jim. Thank you for the call.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Jim.
Okay.
Well, guys, it's been a very, very interesting and informative first hour so far, and I want to continue this conversation, and I also want to give enough time for John to get his King's Court ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to break here a little bit early, and in order to do that, we'll go to break, we'll come back, King's Court, and we'll continue the conversation. This is Joe Joseph. This is Freedomlink Radio. Stay tuned.
I saw my best friend tonight, so don't push me too hard.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit free2prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
You won't walk with me. I'm bound to come down with a new style. Rock and roll is up known as reggae music. Gonna come down with the do the rigs, cause it just ain't no thing. Oh, I said
Welcome back, folks. We're in hour number 2 of Freedom Link Radio. I'm Joe Joseph. My co-hosts John King and AC Griffith are here with me, and boy, oh boy, I was watching the news the other day, Griff, and Rachel Maddow. Here's some of the things. Here's some of the interesting things before we get to King's Court that I saw. And after King's Court, I would love to get some feedback on this. But they were talking about. She was talking about the idea of pole shift and how the Tampa Bay airport had to change its numbers. And she got into it it had something to do with the fact that all of a sudden there's this new age in the zodiac called Ophiuchus, and they're using it as a smokescreen to make these people that are talking about pole shift look kind of loony. And I just found it interesting because Ophiuchus has been around for millennia, and they're really putting out all the stops now. The mainstream media is really, really, really taking all the stops out and are going full court press to try to make people that are speaking out against mainstream ideas look like crazies. And I don't know if you've noticed that it's been happening a lot more recently.
I think the people have enough problem focusing on toilet paper and tampons and
exactly.
And collecting enough food to sustain life, and vitamin pills and things like that. I don't know of anybody that has the extra time or stamina to go after Planet X and worry about aliens eating us on the spaceship going back to another galaxy.
I just worry about anal probes.
I just don't go there.
I worry about the anal probes. And speaking of anal probes, John King, are you ready for your King's Court, my man?
I am.
Outstanding, my man. Take it away.
Thank you, Joe. Well, I don't have a particular thing wrote up as I normally would for my King's Court. I just wanted to do something tonight to help solidify a few ideas and let things sink in. As I said earlier in the show, some of the things that I forecast to happen have already happened or is about to happen. Some of you may recall I mentioned no more than a month ago about banks being uncovered for fraud, as well as a couple companies will be indicted, and some risky business practices will be, or underhanded business practices will be uncovered in the banking system. Well, according to The Guardian, if you want to Google it and get the same headline, Swiss whistleblower Rudolf Elmer plans to hand over offshore banking secrets of the rich and famous to WikiLeaks. Now, WikiLeaks is already been rumored to have information on Bank of America. This gentleman, who is Swiss in origin, broke Swiss law when he released these documents to WikiLeaks. Under Swiss law, banking records are confidential, so he will be facing a trial for this. He goes on to state that some politicians in the U.S. as well as around the world have been doing some very underhanded things to avoid taxes and some illegal maneuvers within their banking interests. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, given the time that this gentleman gave WikiLeaks the stuff, give them time to decipher it, go through it, and now you're into February when I also told you that come Valentine's Day, all bets are off. That's when the proverbial hand pulls the flusher on the toilet and down the hole we all go. If you listen to RT and Max Kaiser with the Kaiser Report, as well as if you've listened to the video from the commercial that we run here on endofamerica8.com, it will tell you exactly what's coming down the pipe. And I want to read this article from the Financial Times. WHO, which is spelled HU, questions future role of U.S. dollar. Now, I'm not the best orator or reader in the world, so please bear with me. I'll try to be clear and concise. China's President Hu Jintao has raised questions on the role of the U.S. dollar in the global monetary system on the eve of the state visit to Washington, saying the current international currency system is the product of the past. Mr. Hu, who arrives in Washington on Tuesday, also delivered a thinly veiled critique of the U.S. monetary policy, underlining China's concern about the impact on its own economy of recent stimulus measures taken by the U.S. Federal Reserve. The monetary policy of the United States has a major impact on global liquidity and capital flows from there. The liquidity of the U.S. dollar should be kept at a reasonable and stable level, said Mr. Hu. Mr. Hu said his comments in response to written questions from two U.S. newspapers, the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. His unusually blunt comments on the U.S.-led monetary system is a product of the past, is confirmation that China will continue to take measures to internationalize its own currency, the renminbi, spelled R-E-N-M-I-N-B-I. However, Mr. Hu said that making the RMB an international currency will be a fairly long process. On a side note, it's coming, folks. Mr. Hu rarely gives newspaper interviews, especially to Western outlets, leaving most high-profile media public appearances at the home and abroad to be conducted by Wen Jiabo, the country's smooth-talking premier. Although Mr. Hu's stiffly worded answers contained little that conveys any of his own personality, there is distribution that illustrates the importance of China attaches to the U.S. trip, which also includes a stop in Chicago. Despite what he acknowledged as a sensitive issue of disagreement between U.S. and China, he generally struck a positive note on bilateral ties, saying the two sides could work productively together. There is great potential in our mutually beneficial cooperation, both in advancing Asia-Pacific regional and cooperation in improving global economic governance and promoting sustainable growth in the world economy, he said. Mr. Hu strongly criticized the structural faults of the world's banking system that led to the 2008 financial crisis. Its root cause lies in the serious defects of the existing financial system, he said, adding that the global institutions had failed to fully reflect the changing status of developing countries in the world's economy and finance. Mr. Hu will be feted in the White House with a state dinner on Wednesday, the type of event that the administration reserves for close friends or countries and leaders that it thinks will need to be cultivated. Now, what does all that mean? That means if China puts their money out on the international market and it becomes more stable than the dollar, all those countries out there that trade in U.S. dollars will dump the dollar faster than a hooker with venereal disease, and they will go back to the Chinese dollar, and all of those dollars that are out there, those U.S. dollars that are out there and off of the books that are being traded internationally will now be accounted for because nobody else wants them. That will devalue the dollar, inflation will kick in, and it will get nasty, nasty, nasty from there. It's also been widely reported, folks, and you can research and do this yourself, but in 2018, if they taxed you at 100%, it still would not be enough to pay off the interest on the national debt. Now, under the current economic standard that we have now, we have at least an end game. They cannot go past 2018 at this point without doing something major, and now that we have China talking about they're going to put their money out on the international currency, that's pretty much a shot over the bow with an economic war. So we only have a few years left at the most. I see things starting to spiral come spring. We've got sky-high unemployment. The economy is in the crapper, to be polite about it, and it's becoming very stagnant, and it's going to get worse as the infrastructure of the United States starts to drop. So you don't have much time, if any at all, to prepare, folks. And if you haven't done so already, I would. And if you don't, and you end up getting caught with your pants down, don't come to me for anything that I may have, because as Griff and we all like to say, self and family. You have your own self to blame, and bend over and take it like a man. Back to you, Joe.
Well, gee whiz, thank you, John. I feel so much happier now after your doom and gloom diatribe.
I tell it like it is. I call a spade a spade. You know what? That's part of standing up in this country and telling them no more. That's part of being a U.S. citizen, is calling a spade, and this softening of the press and the mainstream media blaming the alternative media and shows like ours for all these whackballs running out and shooting people and doing all this other stupid stuff, and we need to tone it down. No, we don't. We don't need to tone down anything. They just need to start doing their job and report what is true and get off of the fluffy stuff. It is, I think, very much an American thing to be able to get up on the soapbox, as we do here twice a week, Joe and Griff, to critique the government. That in itself sits at the very foundation of this country. I believe at this country.
No, you're absolutely right. And after the King's Court tonight, I think I'd rather go for that reptilian anal probe. But hey, I drummed up that unclassified. It was classified. Now it's unclassified Army document, Griff. And what this document's pretty much saying, and maybe this will help clarify for you, Jim, in New Hampshire. According to this document, HARP and scalar are used in tandem with one another, meaning that in order to get the most out of the scalar weapon system, Griff, they use HARP to create a plasma environment, and that plasma environment makes it more conductive to longitudinal EM waves. You know, these particulates, and you know so what they do is, you got the chemtrail program. It's spraying us all the time with whatever, but let's just say it's aluminum aerosol, right? And then they go and they blast these particulates with HARP energy, with RF energy, and that creates a plasma in the atmosphere. And then that plasma is ripe and conductive for that scalar weapon system. And then, then you've got the powers that be singing Kumbaya over in their little caves and deep underground military bases. So what do you think? And that's why the chemtrail program's global, Griff.
Well, I still have a problem with that. With the fixed array antennas at HARP, how do you get around that? How do you ionize, or how do you plasma the entire area around the Earth?
Say that again, Griff. I'm sorry. I'm trying to absorb it, like
yes,
aluminum.
I understand. If your antenna array is fixed in Alaska, it's not an array that you can move and aim and manipulate direction to any great degree.
Right.
It's cemented to the ground, and it's pretty much straight up. How can you create a plasma effect on the other side of the world?
Because they're not using high-frequency they're not using anything in the VHF band or up. They're using extreme low frequency, and you can aim it. It's possible for them to aim it, and I can get into that. But that array, the reason why they use that array is because they are able to do that. And secondly, with the frequency that they're using, they can bounce it off the atmosphere anywhere they want to go. Because again, it's I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It's tough to freaking put it into words, but the way that array, if you look at the radiation pattern of a fixed array like that, where you have all sorts of antennas in that type of configuration, it almost looks helical. I wish I could put it into words, but it is.
I hear you.
It is able to do it. You can do it that way. You can aim it.
So you can radiate the layers on the other side of the Earth with a fixed array.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're using a big enough wave. You know, it's the smaller waves that pierce the atmosphere. It's not the large waves. When you're talking about
now, why would you want to do that, Joe? If you're after, let's say, an earthquake in Siberia, why would you want to heat the upper layers above Siberia?
That's
if you
only
take a scalar
one
wave
purpose,
and put it through the Earth and make it come up 300 miles into the Earth in Siberia.
Oh, I agree. I don't know all of the ins and outs. You know, again, I'm just a novice. What I do know is RF, though. I mean, that's my bread and butter.
Well, tell enough to the listeners to know that your background is in transmitters.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do. I'm an RF. It's the equivalent of a plumber. You know, when you talk about how water flows through a pipe, RF essentially works the same thing. RF is your pipe, and then over that pipe, you use voice. You can send data. You do whatever, and that's what I do. That's what I do for a living. I figure out new and exciting ways to use RF.
You're like a plumber in ducting.
Yeah,
kind of.
Well,
under the house, create a ductwork.
It kind of, sort of.
I'm joking with you a little bit, but
sure.
That's. I have great respect for your comments when it comes to the RF. You are earning your living doing this all the time, so. Those listening know that Joe knows what he's talking about.
Right. So I
still have reservations about this harp. I can see, in theory, where it could be used in some applications, but I know all of the universities are tuned into it, and they have equipment for monitoring the harp effects all over the world. It's programs tied through universities, and I don't think it's a primary military weapon. I just still can't believe that.
Griff, it may not be, but it can be used in that manner. And just so you know, it's not like they can aim it at some place 100. You know, case in point, when you're talking about over-the-horizon type of weapons and things like that, they can't aim it at, say, a place in China. But that's what Gwen towers are for. Have Gwen towers strategically located all over the world that take these harp signals and bounce it, almost like repeaters, if you will. You know, like repeater towers. Same type of instance. So they're out there, you know. And like I said, I could get into some of it, but I'm not like Dr. Nick Begich, who I'll try and get on the show, by the way, who has done extensive research into harp. And has actually done a few experiments on TV, you know, with Jesse Ventura as far as how harp can be used and some of the ways it can be used. He actually showed him, and it was pretty interesting.
But you see, they don't know anything about scalar. They know nothing, zip, nothing. So they're going to harp and trying to backward engineer the effects and connect it to harp. I see that frequently done in today's world. Many of the people in their specialties have no understanding of anything outside of those fields that they have chosen.
You know, kind of think of it like this, man. Think of it like if we put it in like a computer sense. Think of harp being a server, and then these Gwen towers being the nodes on a server. Think of it kind of like that.
Why do you need harp, Joe? Why do you need that? I don't know that you need that.
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, Griff. I wish I did.
I think the weapon systems would work just fine without harp. They were functioning long before harp was built.
You mean the scalar stuff?
Yes. Yes.
No, I mean, I agree. I agree. I'll be honest with you. It is most certainly a Tesla. Tesla could split the damn Earth in half if he wanted to with his death ray.
Long before HAARP. Yes.
Exactly right, and you're right. I don't know. I don't know where all this falls into place. I don't know why HAARP is there. I do know it's there for a reason, and I do know it was advantageous enough for them to be able to do certain things. And if it may very well just be an atmospheric heater, Griff, but nothing that I've seen in secret is ever just an atmospheric heater, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, HAARP is not secret.
Okay, there's a lot of things that are not secret, meaning that they exist, and we know they exist. However, their purpose isn't exactly, shall we say, I don't know. They're not advertised, you know. They do certain things to they do experiments and everything like that, but I don't know exactly what every purpose is. That's part of the pursuit of knowledge and truth, is we have to try and figure this stuff out. There is an awful lot of evidence, though, to suggest that HAARP is a weapon system and has multiple uses, much like Scalar.
Well, that's because most of the people that are making those claims know nothing about Scalar.
Exactly right. I agree. And I mean, when you go to
not even conversation.
When you go to Colonel Tom Bearden's website and you start to read about Scalar, let me tell you something, man. It'll make you drool out the side of your mouth, make you feel like a Neanderthal almost. Wow, this guy's
let me mention
smart.
something since you touched on the man there. There was let me do it in a kind of a crypto way. There was much concern and curiosity what would happen once the TV stations across America converted over to the new frequencies and the higher power.
Right.
There was serious concern whether or not they would set up a nightmare of spontaneous scalar events all over the United States and world when that switch was made, with all of the frequencies at those powers and those frequencies coming together at random junctions when they fired the transmitters up. And I don't know of any study that's ever been made to see if any of that is indeed causing any of the earthquakes.
Right, I don't know. Now my wife's going to be posting a link in the chat room about some of the experiments that they've done with HAARP. Now remember that HAARP can be manipulated. It can pierce the atmosphere. They could use ELF that does not. And one of the experiments they did, they were bouncing signals off the moon with it. I don't know what that means. I don't know why they did it, but they did it. You know, so...
ham radio operators 30 years ago bounced signals off the moon with their ham radio transmitters.
Sure.
Yeah. And then picked up the echoes.
Yep. Let me go to the phones here, Griff. I'm going to go to Tim in Virginia. Tim, you're live on the air. Go ahead, Tim.
How you doing, boys?
We're doing good.
It's good to hear you on the line tonight. I was going to call about your food crisis, that you're going to dig a hole in the ground. And
I'm just saying, keep it simple, man. You know, how the hell did people live back then?
That's a good idea, but you got to keep animals as your main concern. They're going to be bears are going to be breaking into it, but the food temperature danger zone is anywhere between 40 degrees and 140 degrees. And anything in between those two temperatures is susceptible to bacteria.
Tim, that's a lot of swag there, man. 140 and 140? That's
from 40 degrees to 140 degrees. That's the food safety temperature danger zone.
So I have to dig down pretty far.
Well, I don't know how. It depends on where you're at. You know, if you're up in the Arctic, you don't have to dig very far at all.
No, man, I'm down in North Carolina, man. Come on.
You can hit permafrost, but you know, I would guess that you throw some ice down there, and you should be able to do pretty good as long as you got it insulated, or you can't just be
crap.
throwing food down there on the soil. That's for sure. You got to have some kind of.
Tim, I'm in
concrete.
North Carolina. Where am I going to find ice, bro?
Well, you're gonna have to at least have it poured with concrete, so it's not just raw dirt you're throwing your food down into. Griff will straighten you out on that.
I was just kind of trying to make a point that we really make things. We don't take a step back and think of things in a simple sense, much like they thought of it when 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when none of these technologies existed, and that's my point. We can overcomplicate things now until the cows come home. We lose power, or say the electrical grid breaks down, and all of a sudden people are trying to get that back. They're not saying, "Oh crap, the electrical grid's down. I don't think we're going to be getting power back for a long time." But that's no sweat, because hey, I'm cool, man. I've done the research, I've done the training, I'm good. No, hell no. They're trying to get their refrigerator back online or run their gasoline-powered generator, in the hopes that it may come back. Well, one day it may not come back. And if that's the case, you got to know how to live. You got to be able to say, I can't use these LED lights. Crap. I'm going to have to make myself some pitch and cook my torch. Hey. That's all I'm saying.
That's how the Indians worked. They didn't have no electricity bulbs going on.
You're kind of smoky, may have a little irritation of your respiratory system, but at least you can see. You got to be able to see through the smoke, but you can still see.
Yeah, certainly. And you guys were mentioning about that ring that was in the cloud formations.
Yes.
Yeah. Griff, you helped me out on this one. That was fired off. There was a missile fired off the shores of Virginia like a year ago or close to that, called the Cloud of Care. Griff, you know anything about that?
No, I don't. I hadn't heard about that. I know Wallops Island is off the coast, and it's the backup for Cape Canaveral. They've been firing missiles at Wallops Island for the last 40 years, 50 years.
No, this one was fired off of Virginia here.
You mean not one of ours? Do you think it was one of ours?
Yeah, it was definitely one of ours,
mm-hmm.
And it was a scheduled launch. I even heard it on some kind of a radio program, but when it went off as a big scare, and they reported it as a UFO reporting, and they saw these big lights in the sky, and this big ring appeared, and you don't remember that?
No, I sure don't.
What's bad is I'm right outside of Hampton Roads, and I don't remember that either. But it's cool. I mean, I'm cool with you, Tim. But I'm a little.
You guys follow Freeman? You ever heard of Freeman?
Freeman.
Yeah, he does Freeman TV.
Nope, I sure don't.
I'll send you some links about that Cloud of Care, and that's what that is.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It was a scientific test that military did. They launched some missile up, and it blew up, and it blew this Cloud of Care. The Care is the synonym for whatever they launched into the sky, and it was to do an atmospheric test of a synthetic cloud of some sort, and it had enough time at that time from when it was launched to go over to where it blew up that ring in Russia. And I don't know what the jet stream does as far as coming down off of Russia, if that comes down into Australia or not, or how the weather gets down.
Let me make a comment about those rings, the one in Australia that was on the Internet. Those rings have occurred all over the United States, over major cities. One of the most dramatic rings that I've recorded was over Boston, and it was so large it covered most of the state of Massachusetts, and it would pulse. We've also picked up rings over Las Vegas, many other cities, major cities in the United States. So it's been going on for a long time. I do know. I don't know what they are. I've really never taken the time to look at it. But I know that if you ionize the atmosphere over a city, whether you go heavy on let's say you go heavy on the positive ions and you distort the electrical charges, that upset of the atmosphere will cause mental behavior in the people. It'll cause personality changes. Also, it'll cause medical problems. You can electrically induce respiratory asthma instantly over an entire population by manipulating the positive negative ions. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that you could do that with radar rings. I've always thought that. I have no basis for that being the purpose of those rings, but I've always wondered about that. I know that asthma has popped up in various places around the world from time to time, instantly over large populations. That's got to be the manipulation of the charges. There has to be a balance between negative ions and positive ions in the atmosphere. On storm fronts, you can feel the ozone, or smell the ozone rather, the clean, fresh air, and you will get more. Typically, you will get more negative ions in the atmosphere, and you will feel good. But when you get more positive ions, then things start happening. It's been recorded by people studying crime, police departments, that crime rates go up if you raise the positive ionization of the atmosphere that the people are in. So it's kind of curious. But those rings have been going on for a long time. I've got quite a few recorded in the computer. The most dramatic one I ever saw was over Boston, though. It looked like a multicolored flash bulb going off over the whole state, and it would pulse back and forth. Also, quite a few out of Miami and Jacksonville and other cities. Joe?
Well, hey, you know what, Griff? I think John has something to add. John, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, you guys were talking about burying food and the 40 degrees to 140 degrees. Well, one of the things that I've got going out on my back porch is when I bought my new refrigerator, knowing that a lot of things should be recycled, I hung on to the old one that's sitting out there awaiting some little bit of attention. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out all the plastic parts on the inside and leave the shelves in there. Put a little fifth burner on the bottom of it, put it on low, say 250, 300 degrees, with a skillet on the bottom, put some apple chips on inside the skillet, and turn that fifth burner on, load those racks up with apple chips, with meat, or what have you, and close the door, drill holes in the top to let the smoke out, and build my own little homemade smoker to help me preserve meats. And all I really need is dried wood and a little bit of salt.
So you built a smoker out of a refrigerator, man?
Yeah, I'm in the process of doing so. It's like 10 degrees out there, and I'm not going out to smoke anything in 10 degrees.
Why not, man? Come on.
But you can pull that up on YouTube. You can pull it up on Google. Refrigerator smoker, how to build. It's that simple.
Oh,
that's a very incredible good idea that he's got going on there. Just as you don't want to take an operating refrigerator and do that to it, but if you have one laying around, it's a choice.
That goes to show you how outback redneck hook toad that John is. You know, he just has a refrigerator just hanging out in the backyard. You know what I'm saying?
Putting a working yeah, I park in my front yard too. Putting a fifth burner inside a working refrigerator is sort of like putting a dehumidifier and a humidifier in a tent and plugging them both in to see who's going to win.
That's
yeah,
right.
Take out all the plastic inside so that there's no meat contamination. Leave the racks in there. Sterilize the racks, and a little bit of wood inside a skillet on top of a fifth burner. Put up to about 350 degrees. Let the wood smoke, and that will cure your meats, whatever, venison, beef. It will also, if you bring it up to about 200 degrees, you should be able to dehydrate fruits and vegetables. You'll just have a supersized dehydrator.
Well, that's
with
awesome.
With a little smoke.
With a little smoke
flavor.
Well, thank you for the call, Tim. And when we come back, folks, we'll continue our conversation. I want to get into this pole shift stuff in the last half an hour, so we'll do that. Take your phone calls, all that and more. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit Free2Prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
Well, folks, we're back, and we're in the home stretch here. Anybody that wants to call into the show, the number to call, 877-598-8549. And be glad to take your call here with about 25 minutes left to go. I just wanted to bring up the subject of pole shift once again. As you know, on Thursday evening, we had Dr. Brooks Agnew and John Moore on the show, and we talked in depth about that. And did a little research today, my wife and I. We looked into it a bit, and one of the reasons why we're not finding pole shift as prevalent in the search engine, say you Google pole shift or 2012, which is the typical way that you tend to look this stuff up, you don't really find too much on the subject. As a matter of fact, you find a lot of kooky sources and nothing really of any significance or substance. But one thing that we found was that scientists actually use a different term for pole shift. They don't use pole shift. They use something called true polar wander. And if you take a look at true polar wander, and I won't get into what the scientific research or the definition of true polar wander is. You guys can look that up for yourself. And that's your homework assignment for tonight, folks, is to go out there and research this. And when you do, take a look at the Google Scholar and click on that, because those are scholarly sources. And you'll find a lot of scholarly sources on true polar wander. And basically, in a nutshell, what this is the scientific community's code word for pole shift. That's all it is. And they are most certainly affirming that it does happen. Now, there's a difference between a pole shift and a pole reversal. That's one thing that people need to understand when we talk about the North and South Pole moving, okay? Pole shift has happened more than once in our existence here on the planet, and will probably happen again. And pole reversal has also happened on this. But the pole reversal is when the poles flip. North becomes south, south becomes north. A pole shift, or true polar wander, is when you start having it move, I don't know, say 40 miles per year towards Siberia. And that's not even it. I mean, it can move faster than that. And I encourage everybody out there to do the research into this, because it could be a very interesting and important topic to be educated on in the days and months ahead. So please, look into that. But again, true polar wander, that's what you're looking for when you do a search into pole shifting. And geomagnetic reversal. If you want to look up pole reversal, it's geomagnetic reversal. Those are the search terms that yield the most results for anybody trying to look up something from a scholarly source or something a little more credible. So that's that. Griff, what do you think?
Joe?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I missed a couple of three words there at the very tail end.
Oh, I said, what do you think about pole shift? What do you think about the theory of pole shifting?
It's not one of my high priorities, Joe. Neither is the survivors on the Titanic and the mothership going back to Rigel 12. I would rather concentrate on collecting food. We can't do anything about it. I would rather understand the radar rings over the cities. If I were going to study something, it would probably be something like that. Something that's more relevant, or the ionization and how positive ions affect behavior in humans and stuff like that there. It's not one of my high priorities.
Okay, I'm just starting out from scratch, right? Here I am, Joe Schmuckatelli, and I'm like, oh, crap. Planet X is coming, the poles are shifting, we're going through the galactic plane, the economy's collapsing, Iran's going to nuke us. Oh, crap, what the heck? Where do I start?
Start with food.
Okay. So what kind of food am I looking for?
It's been my observation that any time, and I've seen it over and over and over again, it always occurs. Maybe it's a diversion. Maybe it's something that people need to take their mind off of the immediate. I don't know what causes it, but there's always this diversion in people to go to outer space, or be worried about the radiation on Mars, or say that the planets are affecting us here. They completely ignore things like Secretary of Defense Cohen's statement They always do that, Joe. They always ignore what's right in front of them, hard evidence to all of this, and they go off on a tangent. Always.
Exactly right. No, they do. And folks, anybody that wants this unclassified Army document, I can't post it in the chat room, but I will. If you guys want to do email the Freedom Link, it's thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. I'll be glad to email it to you, and my wife's going to repost it in the chat room right now, so you have it, and that'll give you an idea about how they're using energy weapons, RF, scalar, all that kind of stuff, microwave, you name it, they're using it, and that will pretty much give you a good idea. And with that said, let me go to the phones here. Let me go to Lee in Kentucky because I like Lee. Lee, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing just fine. How are you gentlemen this evening?
Doing just fine, Lee.
Hey, got a couple comments real quick. I'm going to be
Sure.
off subject just a little bit, but a couple shows ago, there was a gentleman called in from Canada, Ron or Randall or something. I heard him talking about.
Ron, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, about almost belittling the thoughts of, trying to make any preparations at all. And in listening to his ration, to the way he reasoned that, first of all, he's never spent a day in the military because your supply line is vital to having a fighting force. If you cut off the enemy supply line, then you have pretty much destroyed them. So it's essential that we have food and certain things to help us to endure those things. And I noticed that he made the comment, well, we can change it through the ballot or we can change it by changing this or that. My personal opinion is I think we're past that because all you're doing is electing a horse of a different color. You might have a shot with local government a little bit for a while, but I noticed his comment was, well, I can't find anybody to run. I've asked people to run. They don't want to run. My question is, what about him? I've known a lot of people like that. They always say, well, somebody else do it, and then when you push somebody else, it's... Ron
has run for mayor. I do know that. He's run for mayor in his local municipality, and he was unsuccessful. But boy, he tried, and he tried he tried on the platform of sovereignty. You know, he is working towards and has been for a long time exercised his sovereignty, and it made it very difficult. You know, because to the average John Q. public, you know, it's a very interesting and sometimes hard concept to wrap your arms around, because we live in a society where, you know, you want to drive, get a license. You know, property tax, got to pay it every year if you own a house. And it's just
good to hear. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it was good to hear that he did, because I know I was little, as he kept talking about, you know, well, this is crazy to take your MREs or whatever and run and hide in a cave. That's not the issue. It's not about running and hiding. It's about surviving. And you have to have a group of people and a little bit of material to help you to endure. If you go out there with nothing, if you wait till the last minute and think, well, I'm not going to need anything, and you find yourself in a situation with nothing, your chances are null. I mean, all we're doing by doing this is at least giving ourselves a chance. And if we give ourselves and our families a chance to survive, that's better than nothing. And, you know, hopefully we'll, you know what, it would be great if we never have to use any of this. But, I mean, I think it's pretty much inevitable. And I was going to touch on something AC was talking about the other night. We was talking about the Civil War. You know, down here, it tore this state apart. Kentucky, the Civil War and it still goes on. Both, you know, Jefferson Davis and both Abraham Lincoln were both born right here in Kentucky. And it's brother against brother, father against son. But what the point I was going to make is, if you look at the last election maps, most of them for the past few years, the line is pretty much the blue states were the north and the red states were the south. What's interesting is, to me, you know, everybody says, well, the South lost the war. Up until Katrina, or this oil spill disaster, the South was actually a lot more prosperous than the North. In fact, the unemployment rate right now is a lot higher in the northern states than it is in southern states. And so what I would say is, I don't know that we lost. The shots have stopped firing. And the old saying down here is, Lee surrendered, I didn't. But yet the South, the economy in the South is not suffering near as bad as it is in the North. And I think a lot of that goes back to tie it all together, is that judgment, God's judgment on America is already began.
Sure.
It's already started. And when you look at California, like I say, you look at your blue states, and I'm not saying that we're immune to it or it's not going to happen. I just think it's being delayed a little bit because the societies in your northern states and your far western states are a lot more anti-God than they are here in the Bible Belt and in the South. And with that, I just go ahead.
Jim, I'm sorry, Lee, what gives you that idea? Seriously, I mean, come on, California? Come on, really?
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna be as, I'm trying to be reserved a little bit. I don't want to, but we know what's out there in San Francisco, especially. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, good Lord, you're right, Jim. All right, Lee. Geez, I got all sorts of different names on the mind right now. But you're right.
I bet it's lighting up right now.
You have that older infrastructure. You've got it's a lot more liberal type of environment. Now, I'm not one to believe in the left-right paradigm, but I do believe that they're a lot more lax when it comes to their morality. And you've also got the reason why the economy suffers so bad, and I lived it up there in Long Island for 3 years. The taxes are absolutely, incredibly, ridiculously high. So much so, and the cost of living's awful. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad when my mortgage payment now was the cost of my property tax per month up in Long Island.
Yeah, that's good.
It's
but
ridiculous.
You know what? I think it is ridiculous, and I think a lot of that goes right back to, in the South, we don't have all the handout programs that they do up north. They want to give you something. Everybody's got a phobia. Everybody's got something. And now I'm not saying we don't have a lot of deadbeats, because we do, but percentage-wise, we don't have the handout programs that they do up north. I know Georgia, they have flat cut out all of the welfare and for anybody that's not a legal citizen of the United States. I'm not against trying to help people, but we have to do it ourselves. They can't just rob us and take our money and say, well, here, we're going to do what we think's best with it, and then we wind up poor for. But AC, I'd like to get I might maybe hear his comments on that as well, because he brought it up the other day. And but I enjoy listening to all of you guys. I love your program. I try not to miss a show, and I just want to tell you, I hope that God continues to bless you, and I encourage you, and I hope the best for all of you.
I appreciate that, Lee, and God bless you too, and thank you for the call.
Lee, before you go, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Would you send me an email, please? My email address is Griff703, GRIFF 703 at hotmail.com.
I'll sure do it. I just wrote it down.
I appreciate that, and I'd like to talk to you.
Yes, sir.
Have a good night, Lee. All right, let's go to another call there, Grifter. Let's go from our buddy Jim in Amarillo. Jim.
Hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Long time no talk.
Hello, Griff. Did you what email address? I've been sending you several emails, Griff, and haven't got any answers back. Maybe I got the wrong email address.
I get hundreds of emails every couple of days. I've got them backed up in the computer.
Okay.
He's got you marked as spam. He's got you marked as spam, Jim. The dirty dog.
Probably has. That's okay. I'll send them anyway.
So what's going on, Jim?
Well, I'm like that last fella. I try to get on all your programs and several other programs that I listen to, and I have to go back, and Griff and John seem to be the only ones making any sense. And John was talking about his refrigerator barbecue. I had one of those back in the late 60s, early 70s. We used one of those old refrigerators that you lock the handle on. You have to pull the handle to open it. That's the kind that worked best. And we just set a hot plate in there and a cast iron skillet on it and smoked turkeys and ham and everything else. It works real keen.
Wow.
But
main
thing I wanted to say was of all the people that I've heard on several calls, I still have to go back to Griff for talking about people need to be preparing themselves so they got something to eat and some water to drink and stay in the house. You know, keep their home. I don't care if they've been foreclosed. See, I've been foreclosed on about almost a year ago now, and I'm still here. I'm not leaving. I'm still fighting it in the federal court. But you got possession's 9/10 of the law. And so, but people look at, when I talk to them about putting up some food and stuff, they look at me like deer in headlights. But when this thing all crashes down, think what's going to happen if they knock out the grid with one of these electromagnetic deals or however they do it, or just something comes along and blows out the main grid. You can't even buy anything because you can't go to a store and say, hey, push a buggy up there, and they don't know what the price of it is. If they don't have that computer sitting there to read those barcodes, they're not going to be able to sell you anything. And after 3 or 4 days, people sort of turn, without any food, they start turning into animals. And after a week, they will be breaking into the store, Walmarts and Sam's Wholesales and all the other grocery stores, anything that's got food, they'll be breaking into them and taking it. I mean, and people turn into animals when they get hungry and their kids are hungry. And so I don't think that these powers that be, so to speak, know what they're letting themselves in for.
Jim, do you really believe all of that is going to happen?
No, I don't.
How do you think it's going to play out?
I think, because I'm involved with a couple other groups, I think that there are going to be some things happen here sometime between now and March that's going to change the whole deal. I think that the powers that be are up there now are going to be gone. And there's a new government going to take over, and the new money system, it won't be a gold standard because we don't have enough gold to take care of that, but it'll be a precious metal standard. And I think the government's going to be shut down from somewhere from a month to maybe 3 or 4 months. I think it's going to be shut down because they're going to be an educational period where the people are going to have to learn what to do. The new 13th Amendment's going to the old 13th Amendment's going to come back into play, and there's going to be a bunch of lawyers with bar numbers that are going to either change their way of doing it or leave the country because they're no longer citizens ever since they became a member of the bar. And there's a lot of things going on out there, but whether I believe it's going to happen or not, I've got a bunch of food and water stored up and brass and lead.
Sounds like you got your ducks in a row there, Jim. That's for sure.
Well, every once in a while, one of them tries to get out of line, but I get him back in.
Well, that's outstanding, my friend. How's things going down there?
We've been real lucky. You know, I've always made a comment about Amarillo, Texas weather. It's the only place in the world you can stand in mud, deep, and get your eyes put out by blowing the sand. But we have had some of the best weather this winter of any place in the nation. They had I-40 shut down from Holbrook to Kingman, Arizona, and from Flagstaff to Phoenix here a couple of weeks ago. They had ice last week in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Shreveport, Louisiana, and all around us. And we got a little old sprinkling here, just a few flakes, not enough. And we got, earlier in the week, we had some pretty cold nights. But other than that, we have been blessed with some of the best weather in this nation.
Man, you're lucky.
They had snow way south of us. And like I say, and when they get snow and ice in Dallas, Fort Worth, those people don't know how to drive on it. And I was on a call the other night one woman said she just decided to stay home because everybody was trying to kill each other out there on the street, running into each other and running into ditches and curbs and things like that, and they do. But I don't know, and I've still got a lot of chemtrails being sprayed over here, and I'm working on a system to do away with that, and that I got from some people, and so I think, when it gets right down to it, I don't want to go back there, but I was a junior in high school before we ever had electricity on our little old farm back in Oklahoma, And so I know how to live. I know how to can some stuff. I know how to smoke some meat. I know how to butcher a hog, and we've got a lot of wild hogs in this part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how to survive. But you take these people they go. I have some friends in Dallas, Fort Worth area. They go out to eat every night. They've got a beautiful home with a fancy kitchen in it. They never eat at home. Those people are going, when things are shut down, they're not going to have any place to eat. They don't have anything to eat at home.
That's right. That's right. They don't know how to survive. You're absolutely right. And, Jim, we're out of time, buddy, so I thank you for the call. And, folks, this is it. Next show, Thursday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'll have some more information on the guests that I'll have as I find out what guest is coming on. Until then, thank you, Griff. Thank you, all the callers that called in tonight. Fantastic conversations that we had, and I look forward to Thursday evening as well. This is Joe Joseph. This is Freedom Link Radio. Have a pleasant evening, everybody.